Welcome back everyone, this is going to be my new Green Lantern video. They're just explaining more about what's happening with Green Lantern in the larger DC universe, both the Green Lantern HBO series and what's going on with the Diggle version of Green Lantern. We finally found out when they're going to actually cover his storyline. So if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. And Zack Snyder even showed off the Wayne Carr version of Green Lantern that he shot for the Justice League Snyder Cut, then Warner Brothers made him delete. This is actually the video of that with some special effects laid in.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Wow. Wait, let's see. Oh! Good job, Michael.
Seems pretty cool. It's too bad the studio made him get rid of that, but if we hear anything about them adding that back into a future version of that movie eventually, we'll find out. But I think the reason why they made him cut it out is because of Jon Stewart Green Lantern that they want to introduce in a future Green Lantern movie in the next couple of years. I will be doing episode videos for the Green Lantern HBO series when that premieres, which sounds like it's going to be next year because they've already started casting some of the big Green Lantern characters. We just heard about Finn Wittrock being cast as Guy Gardner. It's going to be jumping around in the timeline. He's more of an 80s, 90s kind of Green Lantern, even though he's still around in present day for the Green Lantern Corps. But they just announced that Jeremy Irvine is going to be their Alan Scott. So they're going to do his origin story. Obviously, he's a very young actor. They did say they're going to jump around in the timeline. But I don't know if that also means that we're going to see him cross over with Guy Gardner and some of the other more modern day Green Lanterns. Like we have Jessica Cruz, we have Simon Baz, they're doing Sinestro. I know there's a big question about what's going on with Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. It sounds like they are kind of bookmarking them for a future Green Lantern Corps movie that they're still apparently developing right now. So I know the other big question is what's going on with Diggle Green Lantern in the middle of all this, because there's a lot of Green Lantern related stuff happening in the DC universe. They spent all that time crossing over the Green Lantern movie footage from the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie in Crisis on Infinite Earths, even though they sort of cut Ryan Reynolds out, I think just to be more ambiguous about it. But you do see the Green Lantern ring carrying him to Oa. Funny enough, Ryan Reynolds actually did a rewatch of the Green Lantern movie. He said that he never actually watched it since it came out in the theater. Like he watched it once and then that was it. So we got really drunk and actually watched it through. He was actually pretty kind during his rewatch, even though he's always making jokes about himself as Green Lantern.
And please don't make the super suit green or animated.
Cannot wait to see what kind of Green Lantern jokes he has in Deadpool 3, because by that time, Warner Brothers will have actually released episodes of the Green Lantern HBO series. But David Ramsey was just doing this big interview explaining the future of Diggle in the Arrowverse, what that story is going to be, and how they're going to cover the Green Lantern moment from Crisis on Infinite Earths and that scene from the Arrow finale. So quick recap if you didn't watch all the Arrow episodes. During the Arrow finale, there's sort of like an end credits, end tag scene explaining what's happening with Diggle next. He's accepted a job in Metropolis, so he's taking the whole family, they're packing their house up, and he's in the process of like literally driving the car away when he sees a meteorite crash to Earth and finds this glowing rock. He opens the box. This is actually the behind the scenes for that. This is what the box actually looked like while they were filming. Mark Guggenheim, one of the producers on the show, and the person who wrote some of these scenes, actually kind of explained that Warner Brothers had very specific rules about how they were allowed to do this Green Lantern scene. Like they couldn't show him putting the ring on, they couldn't actually show you the ring. They had to do it Pulp Fiction style where they just show the green light shining on his face, so you're like, what's in the box? But obviously, you know what's in the box. It's a Green Lantern ring. Then a while into the season, they announced that Diggle was going to come back and cross over onto a couple of the other shows like the Superman TV show, Legends of Tomorrow, and that's where his story would continue and move forward in the Arrowverse. Naturally, everyone just assumed that they would cover the Green Lantern story on the Superman TV show, at least maybe some on Legends of Tomorrow. So David Ramsey in his recent interview just clarified where that's going to happen and where they're going to cover that story. So he said the Legends of Tomorrow episode is just like a one-off, weird, funny story, and he's going to be playing a historical figure. This is what he looks like. So obviously, they're not going to be doing any kind of Green Lantern stuff during that. But the other 4 episodes that he's doing will actually tell the Green Lantern story. That'll be on Superman, Batwoman, and Supergirl. I believe he's crossing over to all those shows with cameos, and it'll all be connected with this overarching story of him getting the Green Lantern ring. That's where he said they're going to cover the story of what happens next with that green glowing box. So David Ramsey explained, get it, that Diggle actually refused the call, like he actually turned down the opportunity. So even though he didn't say it explicitly, he basically said that Diggle saw the ring and decided to just ignore it, like he threw it in the back of his closet. I'm going to read what David Ramsey said, so I'm paraphrasing here. He said, after Crisis on Infinite Earths, he got back his wife, who was abducted by the Monitor, talking about Lila, and he got back his daughter, Sarah, who was taken out of existence by Flashpoint. So part of Diggle's story is the last thing that he would want to do right now is receive an invitation from something otherworldly, talking about the Green Lantern ring, the Green Lantern Corps, because he finally has his family back and he lost his best friend to some otherworldliness. So David Ramsey goes on to say that he refused the invitation of whatever was in the box. Obviously, we know exactly what's in the box. It's a ring. But then he goes on to say there are consequences to that, and the story of what he will do next is a part of what we're going to tell through these 4 episodes. And I think the whole idea, like as he goes on to explain the idea that they want to keep Diggle a very grounded character, like he was never one of the characters with superpowers. He didn't even get a super suit right away. That's why David Ramsey says anytime that he would go fast with the Flash, he would run him around, he would throw up. They kind of turned it into a running joke over the seasons during the crossovers. David Ramsey talks about how Diggle was always amazed when he saw someone flying, like he just couldn't believe a lot of these crazy things that were happening around him. So he says when he comes back on the Superman TV show, this will be a very, very early preliminary look at what happens from his refusal, the consequences, and what it means to his destiny. The way he talks about it, he says there's going to be some preliminary physical effects to his refusal of whatever's in the box, like crazy pounding headaches. So basically the idea is that eventually Diggle will become Green Lantern, and they'll just cover that in a bigger story, maybe one of the future crossovers, where you actually see him in a full-blown Green Lantern suit. But it sounds like it's going to take a while for them to work up to that. Like they're going to pull the taffy on that as much as possible. Why tell it in one episode when we can tell it over the course of 2 or 3 years? As for him showing up on the Green Lantern HBO series, where they're doing like the real big budget Green Lantern stuff, I guess it's always possible. I mean, everything is connected if you're talking about Crisis on Infinite Earths. I mean, they crossed over Ezra Miller's Justice League Flash with the Grant Gustin Flash of the Arrowverse. So they did that. Technically, everything is canon. But the way they talk about it, I don't think that he's going to start out, at least in season 1, on that Green Lantern HBO series. If he did cross over, it wouldn't be till a later season. Because I think they kind of want to do their own thing with the Green Lantern HBO stuff, even though technically it's actually the same Berlanti people that are making the Green Lantern show that make all the Arrowverse shows. It's literally all the same people. But I think they're approaching it from more of like a Matt Reeves type of Batman perspective. So like, for instance, how are all the DC movies going to be connected going forward? Like you have Robert Pattinson Batman, who's a very young version of the character, but his movie is taking place in present day. So how do you reconcile that with the Ben Affleck version of Batman on the main version of Justice League Earth? You just say multiverse. That's how you explain everything. They're really going to dig into that deeper on the Flash movie, where Ezra Miller's Flash will travel to the Earth that Michael Keaton's Batman is on. Like, we'll just call it the Burtonverse, whichever designation you want to give that. It sounds like they're going to tease a lot of other Easter eggs from alternate versions of Earth 2. The same way when we first saw the Flash in Flash Season 2 go to Earth 2, and they tease all these other images from all the other shows and some of the movies. They eventually paid all that stuff off, but it took like 7 years to get there. So when it comes to crossing over the Arrowverse people with a lot of these HBO series, like the Green Lantern HBO show, for instance, because we're talking about Diggle, I would just have realistic expectations about that. Like, probably not going to happen in season 1. I think the idea with the Green Lantern HBO series is they want that to have more synergy with what's happening in the future movies. More connected to the movies, like the future Green Lantern Corps movie, than it will be to the CW TV shows. Because of the whole Hal Jordan, Jon Stewart of it all. Like, why would you announce a giant Green Lantern HBO series and not do your 2 most popular characters? Well, probably because you're going to save them for the movie. But because they're doing a Green Lantern Corps movie, I think the whole idea is they want to have some synergy with this Green Lantern HBO series. Because, for instance, Matt Reeves' Batman HBO series that he's doing is basically a spin-off of the Batman movie. It'll involve a lot of the same characters. They haven't completely announced every single character that's going to feature, but Gordon will be one of the main characters. And it'll be Jeffrey Wright playing Gordon on that HBO series. So it's the exact same situation with the Marvel Disney Plus series, where you have the movie actors showing up on the TV shows. That doesn't mean that you'll never see Robert Pattinson's character cross over with the other Justice League characters. It just means that it's probably not going to happen anytime soon. Matt Reeves is just one of the few directors who specifically said, I didn't want to cross this over directly with the other stuff. I didn't want to have to worry about what was going on with that. But everything is technically connected through the multiverse. So that's why his Batman is taking place on Earth 2. And I think they're kind of treating the Green Lantern HBO series the same way relative to the CW TV shows in Diggle Green Lantern. And with a couple restrictions, they'll just let the Arrowverse people do whatever they want to do with Diggle's Green Lantern. The funny connection between Diggle and Jon Stewart, though, because for a long time people are like, will he become the Jon Stewart of the Arrowverse?
Hello, John. Do I know you? You're not wearing your ring. Things must be different here.
Eventually, they did canonize it so that Diggle's real name is Stewart. So he's John Diggle Stewart because his stepfather is General Roy Stewart. So they just had some fun with that. But that's more of like an Easter egg. You have to think of that as sort of like an Elseworlds alternate universe version of John Stewart. But when he eventually does get that Green Lantern suit, they'll just continue to call him Diggle. But hopefully that explains what's going on with all the Green Lantern stuff that's happening in the next year. The first big DC HBO series that's going to drop episodes is going to be James Gunn's Peacemaker series with John Cena's character from Suicide Squad. Like the Marvel Disney Plus series, it's basically going to be a spin-off of the Suicide Squad series, but he didn't say if it's going to be a prequel or a sequel to the movie. All those episodes will be dropping in January next year. Of course, I'll do videos for those as well. I believe there's going to be 8 of them. Everyone post all your theories about Diggle, Green Lantern. Do you think that he'll ever cross over with that Green Lantern HBO series, maybe in Season 2, Season 3? We've got Marvel Loki episodes that are coming up real soon. I'll be doing videos for all those. Make sure you have alerts enabled for my channel so you don't miss anything. Click here for that brand new Loki Episode 1 trailer and opening scene, and click here for my brand new Venom 2 trailer, Let There Be Carnage. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys tonight.